Good morning, everybody. You're listening to a special edition of K4CO Radio. We actually have Kirk Poe here, who is behind Not This Day, which is basically out there to help our veterans. And everybody, if you're just tuning in to K4CO the first time, we absolutely love our military. We love our veterans. And, we're teamed up with TAPS also, which really just helps these veterans. And this gentleman, Kirk, actually heard an interview by a nonprofit that we were doing and decided to contact us. And I'm so glad that you did. And so, Kirk, how are you this morning?
Well, as Travis Tritt said, it's a great day to be alive.
Exactly, that it is. It's a great day to be alive. Just alrighty. So I want you to just kind of introduce our listeners to exactly what you do. And I got, we've been looking at, your Facebook post, Not This Day, which... first of all, I actually wanted to ask, what made you choose Not This Day as the title of what you do?
A couple reasons. The first one is focusing on just today. Sometimes it's difficult to focus on a commitment that is the rest of your life. So if we think too much about yesterday, that is depression. If we think about tomorrow, that's anxiety and worry. So we're focused on today. But specifically, it is suicide prevention. And I just want the message to be that we're all going to die someday, but it is not this day. And today we live. And that's what the focus is on, living today and making the most out of today.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, focusing on the past and everything like that just kind of puts you in a holding pattern and everything like that. So I love that title. So if you could just kind of tell us in a nutshell what you do for these wonderful veterans, that would be great.
Yeah, so all of my healing sessions are Zoom-based, so they can do it from the comfort of their own home. They don't have to leave. A lot of veterans are more comfortable doing it from their own home. But it's holistic healing. And holistic, in my definition, focuses on the complete person. So physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. It's absolutely a non-pharmaceutical approach. I've got no problem with pharmaceuticals, but sometimes some people are overprescribed, and sometimes the side effects are a little bit worse than what the condition is that we're trying to work on. And the pharmaceuticals are very addicting. So I really like for everybody, but especially for veterans, to know that there are some non-pharmaceutical solutions. So veterans and everybody suffer from a whole variety of symptoms, everything from anxiety to grief, to depression, post-traumatic stress, and other forms of trauma, sleep disorders, military sexual trauma, which involves rape, and as I mentioned before, suicide and suicidal thoughts. So any of those and more, I welcome.
And yeah, suicide is actually pretty high when it comes to the military. We are in contact with some of the nonprofits that do military healing and just being there, and the rates are actually just really up there when it comes to that. And I really like how you said the non-prescription route. They are addicting, but I think a lot of times it just kind of covers it, uses it as a Band-Aid and not really dealing with the issue. So a lot of that, when you're speaking with these, are you getting these veterans to open up about what they experience, what they're going through, so that you can start dealing with these instead of, just medication and just, you'll be fine.
Yeah. So the program that I use is part of a portfolio of modalities from Discover Healing, and I'll talk about them in a little bit. But the beauty of that program is that the people I work with, they don't have to talk about what happened. They don't have to think about what happened. So it's very non-triggering and it's very non-evasive. And what I do is focus on not so much what's in their mind, but is what's in their subconscious. Because if we can release the things that are trapped inside of them, whether they are beliefs or emotions, then they will be able to go to perhaps their talk therapist, and they will be more comfortable then in talking about what happened to them and talk about their feelings. But with me, you don't need to talk or think about what happened. It's coming from your subconscious.
From your subconscious. Okay, that's very interesting. I kind of like that. And you actually requested that our Vice President, William, be here as well. For those of you who don't know, William was actually a Navy SEAL back in the Vietnam era. So how's it going, William?
Hey, I'm still here.
You're still here. There you go.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Very nice. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to what would you say is the biggest thing that veterans kind of let you know about, actually why they're reaching out to you for help?
Oftentimes they're pushed by family and friends to seek help, and the reason why they don't seek help on their own is there's a stigma, and the stigma is about asking for help. So one of the branches, probably many of the branches, have a slogan or a motto called "Embrace the Suck," and what that means is that no matter what happens to you, you just power through it. You're strong. And that carries on after transitioning away from the military. And so asking for help is a sign of weakness. Mm-hmm. And the veterans that I work with and they talk about, they just say, no, I'm not comfortable asking for help, because they were taught, do not ask for help. And so that's the biggest obstacle to overcome.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm.
And do you strictly work with veterans? Do you work with any active military personnel?
I would love to work with active, but I've never had active military ask for a session with me, but I would encourage that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of times it's actually when they get out is when they're going through the whole transition period and their brain just starts going many miles an hour.
That's the tough one. You'll have dreams at night. You'll have nightmares reoccurring. You'll wake up and think you're still there. And it takes about 15, 20 seconds to realize you're not. And then you go, yeah. But yeah, that transition period is tough.
I bet, exactly. Yeah, we work with, as I said, as you know, a lot of military veterans. And unfortunately, you would think that with government resources, there's enough out there for these veterans. Unfortunately, there's not. That's why we're so blessed to have certain nonprofits and businesses like yours that can reach out and really fill that gap.
Yeah. And another thing that veterans will say is, I've tried everything and nothing works. Mm-hmm. And so they lose hope. But oftentimes when they say I've tried everything, they haven't tried everything, because there are some healing modalities like I use that they probably have not heard about, because they're not mainstream. They're not commonly known. Mm-hmm. But again, oftentimes it's a combination of the different things, and you just got to find the right combination. So it may be the combination of the work that I do with perhaps acupuncture, with perhaps equine therapy. So sometimes it's a combination rather than one solution.
Right, exactly. And therapy, of course, is counseling, kind of going through it with a trusted therapist right there. So, and I mean, friends can do a certain degree of it. And then other veterans that you keep in contact with. And Yeah, absolutely love it. So when did you start doing this? How long have you been doing this?
I've been working with veterans for about 4 years, and my go-to programs right now, I've been using them for 3 years.
3 years, okay. But you've been involved for about 4.
Yes.
Excellent. How often do you get, you said a lot of it is virtual, which makes sense, especially after the pandemic. Everything's Zoom now. Everything's virtual meetings and stuff. So, when did you start that virtual presence? And since you've been doing it 3 or 4 years, was there ever a face-to-face, or was it usually with that space there so that they can feel comfortable in their surroundings where they are?
We started renting a local hotel small ballroom and doing face-to-face with a veterans organization that I volunteer with, Warriors for Life. And then COVID came around, and that ended that. And that was when I discovered this program called Discovering Healing, and it was all virtual. And I just said, oh my gosh, that's exactly what we need. So for the veterans that in rural areas, there's a lot of veterans that are far away from a VA, right. and there's veterans that just don't want to leave their house, and they're isolated, and isolation is one of the symptoms of trauma. So I meet them where they are.
Where they are, so they feel more comfortable, and I definitely get that. And so in one session, how many on average would you say veterans you have in these Zoom meetings that take place?
I do 7. I have availability of 7 sessions for 3.5 days a week. So in any given week, I'll have up to 25 sessions.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. And do you do one-on-one sessions or all group, or
all one-on-one?
All one-on-one.
Yes.
Okay. So it's never any group session or anything. It's all just you and the other
Exactly.
person. That's awesome. It really gives an attention.
Yes, and it's very specific. So they all may experience the symptoms of post-traumatic stress, but the symptoms can vary.
Right. That's completely understandable. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break right here. Again, we are speaking with Kirk with Not This Day on K4CO. We will be right back with you. All right, we are back on K4CO Radio, speaking with Kirk, who is involved with Not This Day. And they do have a website. It is notthisday.live, or live. Live, yes. All right, there we go. So did want to kind of touch base. You do such great work with these veterans, and you have a real caring heart when it comes to that. Why did you personally get involved in this? What kind of sparked that interest in there of helping veterans?
You know, first of all, I am not a veteran. My dad was a World War II veteran and served in Germany and was there at the end of World War II and then stayed on beyond the end. He was involved in a train wreck and broke his ribs, punctured both of his lungs, was in a serious condition in the Germany Army hospital for about 3 months. They removed one lung and removed part of another lung. After 3 months, they were able to ship him to Fitzsimmons Army Hospital in Denver and spend another 9 months there. That was all before I was born. So my memory is a huge scar on his back going diagonally from one shoulder down to the hip. And as a little kid, I thought that scar was pretty awesome. But now, looking back, I recognize that he had invisible scars that we could not see, scars that he never would talk about. And that was just part of the deal, was that you didn't talk about what happened. But looking back now, I know that he did experience the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And back then they didn't have the name for it. They called it shell shock, if right. they even talked about it. So that's front of mind with me for veterans and those who some gave all, but some suffered from invisible wounds the rest of their life. Secondarily, I retired from the business world about 6 years ago. A dear friend of mine, John, diagnosed with a terminal illness. And so I knew I had several years to spend with him, which I did, and watched him deteriorate over time. But every time I left him, I said, I wish there was something I could do. I wish there was something I could do. And the answers to my wish came to me in different ways. So one was a meditation class. And so I said, John, you want to take a meditation class with me? And we did, because he had a lot of time to sit around and do nothing. And we were the last two people in the world that I ever expected to be in a meditation class.
Right.
And then I wasn't searching, but holistic healing methods were brought to my attention to help with John. And then John died a few years ago, and I just said, there are others that can benefit from these healing techniques that I've learned from. Charlie Daniels, the entertainer, was a big inspiration for me, a patriot. Every day in Twitter, he would post 22 veterans die every day from suicide. And I saw that every day for 10 years while I had coffee. And that just really stuck. 22 a day dying from suicide. And I said, maybe that is my calling.
Mm-hmm. And I you said that they don't really like to talk about it. And it's kind of, at least in my mind, kind of like a 1950s type mentality of this happened, but I'm just going to go to work, I'm going to live my life, not even talk about it, forget that it happened. And then we have this kind of push lately where, you know, something's got to happen. You got to talk about it, just because you can't just bury that down inside. And Robbie, was there something in the military maybe kind of taught or something where it just kind of makes service members not want to talk about it? Or is it just really their experiences that force them?
It's a process of war. If you're in a war and you're in combat, none of us, including myself, talk about those parts of it. Mm-hmm. It's something, if you haven't experienced, a movie doesn't show it, you've got to be there. I mean, right. All the feelings, the smells, the lights, body parts. I mean, that's about as far as I'll go. So those are the real issues, not so much just being in the military. Mm-hmm. If you've been active duty in war, that's a damaging part.
Yeah, even when you talk to me kind of about the war, it's not about the war. It's actually about the ports that you stopped at.
Yeah, what I do is to me, all that bad stuff's kind of in black and white, and the fun stuff's in color. Mm-hmm. So like when we take leave, go to shore, whatever we did, or even if it's just camaraderie over there, I can easily talk about that, and it was beautiful, actually. Mm-hmm. So,
gotcha. Yeah. So, and it's great today that people, you know, it's kind of like, no, you need to deal with this type thing, and so.
Well, it's kind of excuse me, but it's kind of tough for me when I came out. It was much like what you're doing, Kirk, but it was my friends. But interesting enough, all of those friends, I was in bands and so forth, never went over, never in war. But in all honesty, that kind of helped me, because they had this like bright everything, birds flying and stuff. And I just came out of that, and it kind of forced me to be happy with them. It took a couple of years, and I think that really helped me tremendously.
Right. Gotcha. And one great thing, actually, that I love is you do not ask for donations with this whole program and organization. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, a lot of times when it comes to veterans and military and helping them, it's all about donations. It's all about this nonprofit big collecting money, but you do not do that. Tell us a little bit about that. How do you kind of maintain this?
Yeah, I started off small, just me, and needed money for a website and just the overhead of running a small not-for-profit. And do work with civilians, and I do ask for donations from civilians when I do the healing sessions with them. And they know it is a veteran cause, and they're happy to pay because they get healing, and then they know their money goes straight to the veterans, and that I do not collect a paycheck. It all just covers overhead, and that the prices that I charge for the civilians is about half the rate if they were to go to somebody else and get the same service.
And so you take all the money that the civilians actually give you and you utilize that in order to help out the veterans.
That's exactly right.
That is awesome.
That's really good.
I love that. Now, let me get back to kind of these sessions, because this is the main focal point of what you do, correct?
Correct.
Now, in a typical session, what would a typical session kind of look like?
Okay, they last for about 45 minutes, and the person with me on Zoom, you don't have to do Zoom, but I like it because I can look at body language and facial expression just to make sure that I'm not doing anything that is triggering. That's very, very important to me. But the releases that I do are very non-invasive, and we try and do things that don't trigger them. And I'll give you an example. Some of these may be triggering to the person as I say these things, because these are things that are in their subconscious. They may be aware of them. They may not be aware of them. So as an example, let's say that I'm working with a veteran and they have what we call a moral injury. So this would be that they've done something in war that it violates their morals, and that does happen. And now they're feeling the after effects of the moral violations that they were involved in during war. So I would connect with their subconscious and just say, what is ready to be released? So it would start with maybe some beliefs. So a belief is a thought that gets stuck in our subconscious, and that would come from the belief code, which is the modality. So 3 examples of many that are tangled together may be the belief, I am a bad person. Maybe the belief, I do not deserve forgiveness. And maybe the belief, I should not be alive. And so we will bubble those up. And again, they may be a little bit triggering. They may say, wow, that's exactly right. I didn't realize that those were the beliefs that I had inside of me. We will release those. Then we go to emotions that are trapped inside, that were repressed. So that veteran may be feeling anger and bitterness. They may be feeling anxiety and depression. And then they may be feeling shame and guilt and grief for the friends that they lost. So all of those emotions are buried inside of them, and we release those. Then there's the body code, which is the physical ramifications of the negative energies that are trapped inside of us. Mm-hmm. So it may come up that, oh my goodness, there is an imbalance in your gallbladder because the energies that we just released, those beliefs, and especially the things like grief and shame, they have a negative vibration. They'll get trapped in a specific part of your body. It may be the gallbladder, just as an example. The gallbladder is connected to the right knee and to the right shoulder. So they may go to the doctor and say, hey, doc, my right knee hurts and my right shoulder hurts. Doctor x-rays and says there's nothing that I can see wrong, but it hurts. Well, the reason isn't the knee and the shoulder, because this is based on Chinese medicine. The imbalance is in the gallbladder. So then we will focus on the gallbladder and release all the negativity that's trapped within the gallbladder. And oftentimes, not always then, that will ease the pain in the knee and the shoulder. So that's the whole holistic approach. Is it can be beliefs, it can be emotions, and it can affect our body.
And I completely agree with that. Psychologically, I mean, you have the effect where if you believe in something so much, it can change your body. I mean, people have beaten cancer off sugar pills, for example. Just the straight belief that this pill is working, I got the right pill, and boom. But it can also have that negative effect as well. If you think you're getting sick, I remember actually being in college when one of my great professors said, if you ever feel like you're getting sick, go out, have a beer, relax. And a lot of the times I wake up feeling just fine because it gets your mind off of it. So bringing that back, actually, you touched on a very interesting point, which is the individual's moral code. And a lot of times it's that fight with what they were told to do, what they were ordered to do, and what they morally believe is right. Do you believe that is probably one of the biggest reasons for all of the elements that come with coming back for more?
I would say yes, that would be. There's probably a top 10. Mm-hmm. And I would say that, yes, the moral injury is probably top 5, top 3 for those that were active duty and in a war zone.
Now, just kind of personally talking on this, what would you think? Is it a lot of just accepting the fact that you did something that's outside of your moral code, or really looking at your moral code to see, was it really right? Was it really wrong? What kind of creates that bridge to where they can feel okay about it?
And that's going to be, I'm going to say, a two-part solution where I will bring up to the surface those beliefs and get rid of the trapped emotions that are associated with that, and cross your fingers, that will allow them to then do some spiritual healing, which would be something that I would not necessarily do, but I would encourage them to go talk to their spiritual leader or to their therapist.
Or to their therapist to get that started rolling out. You don't really delve deep into that aspect.
I do not, but I make it so I bring awareness, release the negative energy that those have inside, and then by doing that, then that makes it easier for that person to talk about it.
Gotcha. Perfect. We're going to take another quick break here on K4CO. Once again, we are speaking with Kirk from Not This Day, and their website is notthisday.live. And we will be right back. We are back on K4CO with Kirk Poe, who is actually behind Not This Day. And again, I want to thank you very much for coming in and talking with us. So one big thing, and you mentioned it a few times, is PTSD. Okay, and this is still a new term with all of us. Even when I was going to school in psychology back in the early 2000s, it was still a new term out there. And so it's really coming out to light. And you were saying something about the D in PTSD that really just hits a nail for you. Can you kind of let our listeners know about that?
Yes, so the veterans that I work with, they don't like the D in PTSD. The D stands for disorder. And trauma is not a disorder. Trauma is an injury. It is a wound. And a wound can be healed. But by calling it a disorder, it makes a veteran feel like, and this isn't just for veterans, civilians can have PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
But it is not a disorder. It is an injury. If you think it's a disorder, then it's a block to recovery and to healing. So we treat it as if it's an injury or a wound. So if somebody has a broken arm, we don't tell them that they have broken arm disorder. And so we should not say that they have trauma disorder. It is not something that is wrong with them. It is an injury because of something that they experienced. And again, it is not a disorder. And that will help with their recovery if we stop calling it a disorder. I think the reason why it's called a disorder was so that psychologists could get it into their thick book of disorders. And it is there, but please don't call it a disorder.
Right. Well, exactly, because disorder, at least it's kind of, I'm stuck with this. You know, this is something that I have to live with, and I should just accept it. Yeah. Exactly. And you agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Because, studying psychology, I mean, they put everything as a disorder. We got new disorders, on quotes, coming out all the time, and I think a big part of that is not necessarily the psychological field, but the psychiatric, to bring in the medicine and everything. So,
well, if I could add something in here talking about like battlefield injuries, and certainly it is injuring everybody that's been in battle. I remember when I was in, the first person I killed, I cried. What happens is it gets so intense and there's no one to bail you out. It turns into survival. You're not even thinking I'm here to do it for this, that, or anything else. It's basically we've got to survive here and fight back. And that weighs on people in different ways depending on who they are, how it affects them afterwards. But you're really protecting yourself.
Yeah, and that bridges over into law enforcement. So many of the veterans that I work with, when they left the service, they went into law enforcement
It's huge.
and the overall first responders. And Robbie, what you just described is very relevant in the first responder community, and it's something that I'm also very open to work with anybody in law enforcement because they experience the same, many of the same things that our military do.
Especially nowadays, I think, just because of the backlash against them. And a lot of military members do go into law enforcement because it just seems like a good transition into that. And a lot of law enforcement, they always say, police officers kind of put their thumbprint on the back light when they pull somebody over, and get ready because you absolutely have no idea who's sitting behind that wheel. And it just can bring up a lot of that just because it is a form of survival, just the job that they do. So, going a little bit more on PTSD, you were saying during the break that even families of these military veterans can kind of learn what you do and how to help their loved ones and their family members. Can you kind of reiterate on that a little bit?
Yes. As I said, I had a friend that was dying, and I said, I wish there was something that I could do. And I imagine that families and friends of veterans ask that question to themselves every day, saying, I wish there was something that I can do. And so my reply to that is the things that I do can be learned. And everybody that I work with, I tell them, you can do this. And I don't want to work with you for the rest of your life. And when I do these sessions, I want them to look at me and say, Kirk, this isn't that hard. And I will say, you are correct. This is not that hard. You can learn how to do it. So the founder of this program, Dr. Bradley Nelson, has created 2 books. They're available on Amazon. One is called The Emotion Code. One is called The Body Code. You can learn how to do what I do from reading the book. He's got a lot of YouTube videos. So his mission is not to keep this a secret. He wants to put this out there. And he calls it, I call it, awaken the healer within us. Each one of us has an aspect of our internal self that knows exactly what's wrong with us, wants nothing more for us to be happy and whole and healthy. And so we call it awaken the inner healer. And you can do that by reading the books. And if anybody, a friend or family of a veteran, wants to learn how to do this, I can't teach you how to do it, but I can help you learn it.
And where did you stumble across this doctor and his books?
There was a week-long education series on the internet, and so they brought in holistic healers from throughout the world and gave them an hour to talk about their programs. And this was during COVID, and I was looking for something else to help veterans, and I came across Dr. Bradley Nelson and the Emotion Code, and something just hit me, and I said, this is the real deal.
Right.
And that same day, I signed up, I bought the book, read the book, it was almost as if I were remembering how to do it, not learning how to do it. It's interesting because the book's been out for about 15 years, so it's fairly new, but there was something inside of me that was awakening as I read it. So I really think that it was just awakening that healing aspect of me.
And do these books kind of go hand in hand? I mean, you got the feelings one, and then you got the body one, and going in through that, your feelings can, affect the body, and vice versa, and everything. And I do believe, with all of my studies and everything in psychology, that everybody does have it in them to heal themselves, which is a huge thing. And I think a lot of times in our culture, people are not told that. People are told, you have a physical ailment, go to a doctor. You have a brain, thing, you go to a counselor or something like that. Or, unfortunately, a psychiatrist who then, oh, you're sad? Well, just take one of these a day or two of these a day. Because there's some little, chemical indifference in your brain specifically that you cannot battle that without this meds. Am I correct on that?
You're absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
And just as an example of how our emotions can affect us physically, if we repress our emotions, and we all do it, we're taught to repress our emotions, and that's the worst thing that we can do. We start to get angry, and we say, don't get angry, and that anger gets trapped inside of us. It's with all of those negative emotions. So we are taught to repress our emotions. Worst thing you can do. The worst advice I tell people was, don't worry, be happy. That is terrible advice, because if we say don't worry, then the energy of worry gets trapped inside of us, and it makes us worry more, because we have the energy of worry inside of us. So rather than say, don't worry, we should tell ourselves, all right, I'm worried. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. Explore it from a place of curiosity and say, what am I worried about? And what should I do about it? But don't tell people, don't worry, don't be angry, don't be depressed, don't be sad. Mm-hmm. Embrace those, because they are sending you a message. So just as an example, when I learned the emotion code, I had arthritis in my little fingers, the last joint, and they were red, they were swollen, I could not bend my little fingers. And so I said, do I have trapped emotion, the energy of these emotions in my little finger? And I got a yes answer. And I said, why in the world would they pick my little finger? Don't know, doesn't matter, they did. And I released about 30 very specific emotions that I had accumulated over my life. Within 2 days, the swelling was gone, the redness was gone, and I could bend my little fingers again. And every once in a while, they'll start getting stiff, and I'll just check in with my inner healer and say, all right, do you have more emotions that you have repressed? And the answer's always yes. And so they like to go to a part of your body that is already weak, right, and make it worse. So there's maintenance involved, and my finger starts hurting, and I'll check in with my inner healer and figure out what's trapped and let it go.
And even logically, you can even say, and unfortunately our culture does not agree with me, but sadness, anger, all these are emotions that are good. They should actually, you can learn from sadness, why are you sad? You can learn from anger, why are you angry? Instead of just saying, nope, I'm just going to freeze it all in.
I can give you an example, too, of that. I remember when I first went in, training, everything, no big deal. When you realize in 2 days where you're going and what you're going to do, my experience of that was coming from the base trying to drive home. I couldn't even step on a brake. I was actually worried. I went home, thought I was paralyzed. Something was wrong. I had a couple of people talk to me and just relax and so forth and get a grip on it. Then everything was good. But as you said, physically, it takes a big toll. Yeah.
That it does. So thank you very much for what you do. We're going to take another last break, and then we're going to close up here in a bit. But if you're just joining in, we are speaking with Kirk Poe, who's Not This Day, which is notthisday.live. We will be right back on K4CO Radio. We are back on K4CO with Kirk Poe from Not This Day. Thank you very much for tuning in. Wanted to just touch a little bit. You were mentioning Warriors for Life. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, Warriors for Life is a virtual support group, and I volunteer. So we meet 7 days a week over Zoom, and so 7 different hosts. I'm the only civilian host, so all the other hosts are veterans. So it's groups for veterans and about veterans. We meet every night at 5:30 Mountain Time. Except for Fridays, it's an hour early, and Fridays at 4:30 Mountain Time is for female veterans only. We also do coffee break Zoom meetings 2 mornings a week, Mondays and Fridays at 7 a.m. Mountain. And then there's also a midday session on Tuesdays at noon Mountain. But small group, and we just get together and we support each other. The parent company is victoryforveterans.org, and the Warriors for Life schedule and all about is on the victoryforveterans.org website. And Victory for Veterans raises money and buys things like hyperbaric chambers for veterans with traumatic brain injury. And it's a very expensive program, so same model that I use. They'll put the equipment in a doctor's office. Civilians will pay for the treatment, and then they'll use some of the proceeds for free hyperbaric treatments for veterans.
That is wonderful. I love that. And then you were just saying something during the break as well about Mothers of Veterans.
Mothers of Veterans Suicide is another organization that I work with. So good dear friend of mine, Michelle, is a big veteran supporter. 2 of her sons served, and she travels around the country supporting veterans. And then over time, mothers who have lost their military children to suicide have come to her. And it has really changed her ministry focus, not completely, but mostly from focusing on veterans to focusing on the moms whose military children died of suicide. So shout out to Michelle, your moms. I'm going to cry, and I love you dearly.
That's great. And it's so horrible when a mother has to deal with that, because the natural order of things is that the mother should go first, and just dealing with going through that. I'd like you to just reiterate again because it's such a focal point of what you do, as how beliefs interact with us and how important they are.
So beliefs start off as thoughts. And thoughts become things. So we can think something temporarily when I call it in the valley of despair. We're in that dark place. That thought gets imprinted in our subconscious. It can also come from suggestions from other people. So for example, recovery from post-traumatic stress. Some beliefs that may come from other people, or we may think it ourselves, would be, I'm never going to get any better. Maybe I will always feel like this. Maybe there is no cure. Nothing will heal what I have. If that gets stuck in your subconscious, it is a block to healing and recovery. So the work that I do with the belief code will identify those beliefs that are blocking your recovery.
That's amazing, and I could not agree more. Just even studying psychology and everything like that, it's so crucial. What we believe is who we are.
Absolutely, totally agree.
Definitely. So for our listeners right there, how can they contact you, whether it's them or they know somebody that could really benefit from this?
two ways. You can go to the website that you have mentioned several times, notthisday.live, and my email address is Kirk, K-I-R-K, at notthisday.live.
Notthisday.live. Also, there is a Facebook page as well. So can people kind of contact you on the Facebook page as well? You monitor that pretty... Okay, perfect. Excellent. Well, I just want to say thank you again so much for all the work that you do. We just absolutely love our military and veterans and just everything that they sacrifice. And they really sacrifice their minds on a lot of it and their bodies and everything. So you doing this, especially free of charge, again, free of charge, is just such a great, great thing for them. So,
and to the veterans that are listening, welcome home.
Definitely, definitely welcome home.
Thank you, Kirk.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So you've been listening again. It's Not This Day. .live, also on Facebook, and it's been a great day talking with you, and thank you very much. Keep us in touch with everything and kind of make sure you keep in touch with the radio station. All right, you've been listening to K4CO interviewing Kirk Poe with Not This Day. Thank you very much for tuning in. We got some music coming at you right now. You guys all have a great day, and definitely contact Kirk if you know somebody that could benefit. Take care, everyone.